What's up, my friend? Welcome to Savage on Saturdays. This is where we show up to get our stuff done, to move volume, to remind you that we need to get this thing done, especially those of you trying to get certified by March 26th, or should I say 25th? You're trying to get certified on the 5th, by the 25th of March. So you probably already know that there are about 809,000 PMPs in the world. So it is quite a huge number. It is also a very remarkable thing to achieve, you know. Getting certified as a PMP is not only going to elevate your status as a project manager in your firm, but wherever you go in the world, forget about your firm, wherever you go in the world, people are going to look at you and say, that's a professional project manager. Whether it's true or not, a lot of the arguments I hear from people is, well, the PMP is not a measure of how good a project manager you are. That's true. But what the PMP exam does for you immediately is it gets you into the front lane. It immediately gives you that recognition. You see, people already ascribe that you're a project manager that knows what he or she is talking about. So, you're doing the right thing in trying to get certified, in trying to get this thing done. Hello, my friend Dev. Good to see you. Good to see everyone else who's online. Thank you for showing up. I know we've only got about 1.5 days for those of you on the EMEA side of the world. Some people have 2 days. We've got about 1.5 days left at this point. So, anyway, good to have you on today. I'm not sure if you guys were on when I said download the PMP cram list and get the cram list in front of you and look through the tools and techniques. I didn't get any feedback from anyone, so what I'm going to do today is pretty much run through all the tools and techniques. We're going to start from A, we're going to go alphabetically. We're going to go from A, we're going to stop today around D, all right? I've got some stuff that I need to iron out this morning as I'm here in the United Kingdom, so I'm not by my usual setup. So it's a bit of a scrappy video, but it hopefully will give you some ideas about what you need to be looking at for your PMP exam. Okay? So welcome once again. I can see some other folks have joined. Welcome, welcome. Mr. Online Sally here? Sally Harry? Sorry if I got that wrong, but good to see you as well. Thomas, good to see you. We have one of our own who got certified yesterday. Now, I don't think he's on, but Andrew, or I should say Andy got certified yesterday, and he was part of this study group, and he took the mock exams and went through the whole process, and he's now PMP. So a shout out to Andy. I also want to give a shout out to all of our other friends who got certified from this study group. Cabareta, um, Birani, and Chris as well. Chris was also part of this study group. Those folks have gotten certified with flying colors. So if you're new to the group, know that what we're doing has been working. It is working. And it's good to have you. So let's start talking about these tools and techniques. I would encourage you to go through every tool and technique alphabetically. If you have not downloaded my PMP cram list, please do. Those of you who have the cram list, if you could do me a favor and chat that cram list link in, it's free on our website, and anyone who doesn't have it will be able to grab it, right? So if you have a link to the cram list, Dev, I think you've got a link to the cram list. If you could do me a favor, Dev, and just shoot a link down there in the chat so that people that don't have it can see it. Jude, good to see you, man. I saw you working on that marathon mock yesterday. Good job. Good job. All right, so let's shift into the gears of tools and techniques. So, tools and techniques. It took a student of ours who actually is a Praizion Media employee to flag tools and techniques and say, Phil, do you know that tools and techniques on the exam are crazy? Do you know how crazy tools and techniques are? Atif, good to see you. And I said, I'm not really sure. Let me see what you're talking about. And then I open up tools and techniques and I start trying to test myself on the tools and techniques. And I realize they are hard. Tools and techniques. I mean, to know where the tool comes from alone, it can be a bit of a challenge. And I found myself being stumped. I found myself being stumped time and time and time again. The tools and techniques were just throwing me all about the room. So it was a little bit tough. If you don't have the cram list, let me see if I can pull up that link. I think if you go to this link I'm about to shoot you here, I think it will take you to where you can. Oh, Dev has shot it to you. Thank you very much, Dev. Awesome. Okay. So, tools and techniques. What can we say about these tools and techniques? They can be a pain. So, let's start with the first one, acquisition. So when you think about acquisition, you need to be thinking about acquiring the project team because that's where it's used. It's a tool and technique used to acquire the team. Okay. Acquisition refers to when you go outside of the organization, you go to an external firm or agency and say, I need a coder, I need a tester, I need a PM. Here's the description of what I need. Do you have this person? So on and so forth. So that's acquisition, quite straightforward one. The next one is additional quality planning tools. Now, I've put some additional quality planning tools down here just to jog your memory about what these are. So I have a mnemonic. It's a bit of a funny mnemonic. You can't see it, but I want you to think about back then when you were a kid, maybe when you had a party and you didn't want your friend's parents to show up. Ban my friend's parents. It's a bit of a funny mnemonic. But BAN, ban, B for brainstorming, A, affinity diagrams, N, nominal group technique, M, matrix diagrams, and then F for friends, flowcharts, and parents, prioritization matrices. It's a bit of a funny one. Ban my friend's parents. So brainstorming, everyone uses brainstorming, right? You could have structured, free form, all sorts of brainstorming techniques. And then you can use additional techniques to enhance your brainstorming. So if you brainstorm, you get these ideas, and then you're ranking the ideas. Can you tell me what that is? If you've brainstormed, let's say we all brainstorm, there are about 20 of us, we come up with all these ideas. Let's say we take those ideas and rank them in order of most popular, most economically viable. What do you call that? Do you know what you call that? When you rank your brainstormed ideas? There's a name for it. Thank you very much, Achintia. Good to see you. Good to see you, Zimakona. Very good. We call that, um, as he said, what did you call it? Nominal group technique. I beg your pardon. Nominal group technique. We can see nominal group technique is number 3 here. And affinity diagrams, we hopefully know what those are. Can someone type in and give me a rough idea of what these affinity diagrams actually do? What do you do when you are using an affinity diagram? Are you drawing out a diagram or are you doing something else with an affinity diagram? Thank you, Achintia. Oh, you're all over this stuff. Grouping of similar ideas together. I love that, Achintia. You see, that is organic. That is what I'm talking about. You get a definition and you make it yours. Jude says a technique that allows large number of ideas. Let me see what you said, Jude. I'm going to the chat. I love it when you guys take what is in a PMBOK guide and you make it yours. Okay, a technique that allows large number of ideas. I'm sure you're going to say to be grouped. So that's really what it is. Okay, good job. Nominal group technique we've talked about. So affinity diagrams, as Jude and Achintia chatted in, if you've got these ideas, they could be on post-it notes, and you're grouping these post-it notes, you know, by into categories of some sort. Matrix diagrams, if you've used Excel, you know what that is. That needs no introduction. Your matrix has two variables and it shows an intersection, and that intersection tells you something about their relationship. Flowcharts, we know what that is, hopefully, and prioritization matrices goes a step further. If you look at the PMBOK guide, it shows you a tree diagram of sorts, and it shows a prioritization of certain categories. But again, if you've used Excel, matrix diagram and prioritization matrices kind of make sense. So ban my friend's parents. Just remember that one. All right. Next one is advertising. Advertising is a tool and technique of conduct procurements. This is where you take your RFP, RFQ, RFI, IFN, whatever it is, and then you advertise to the populace of sellers that, hey, I've got this RFP, do you want to bid on it? That kind of thing. Contrary to what a lot of people think, advertising actually happens in conduct. A lot of people mix up in planning. They think that you advertise in planning. You don't. It's in conduct procurement that you advertise the RFQs, the IFNs, so on and so forth. Okay. Alternative analysis. This is a tool and technique that is used in estimating activity resources. This is where you ask the question, should I use a highly skilled resource or a less skilled resource? Should I use Phil, or should I use Dev, who has got a lot more background in a particular area, that kind of thing. So alternative analysis is linked to your resources. It looks at resource options. If you want to use Dev, though, don't forget Dev costs more money. It costs like $1 million an hour. So you may not want to use him because he's so expensive. You might want to use him if it's a very, very critical project and you're like, oh, I've got to use the best resource. If you use a less skilled resource, just be ready to do some cleaning up, depending on how less skilled that resource is. You could also take a look at an automated tool versus a non-automated tool, that kind of thing. But always link this to your estimate activity resources. All right. Alternatives generation. So this looks for alternatives. You are trying to motivate your team, enhance their thinking to generate alternatives for carrying out the project work. And consequently, this is linked to define scope. So you see the thread here. With all of these, I'm helping you link them to the process that they are being carried out, because on the exam, they're going to describe something to you and they're going to ask you, what should you do next? So if you don't know where you are, you don't know what the nuts and bolts of the tool and technique is, you could get the question wrong. So I'm missing all the fun. We've got some chats coming in. Manoj. Manoj says, I have been continuously going through all your other PMP related videos and it has really helped me, and also wanted to thank you. I have cleared my PMP. Woohoo! On the 28th of December. Congratulations, Manoj. Manoj, you need to shoot us an email to info@praizion.com, or just go to the site, because we've got something for you. Since you got PMP certified, there is something I need to send you. So if you could do us a favor and go to the website, praizion.com, or just shoot an email to info@praizion.com, that will be fantastic. So Manoj, do us a favor. This is where we help our cousins, our sisters, our uncles, our aunts. We're all one community on this study group. Chat into us, Manoj. What was the big ticket thing that you did that you think led to your success? I know you did all sorts of great stuff. You studied, you watched the videos and all that, but drop some gold for us, Manoj. Drop some gold and let us know how you pull this off, because we want that tribal knowledge thing going. Any advice, any tips, any tricks that we need to know. Sudhir, good to see you. Yes, in time, will have something of interest for you guys. After we close the group for today, I'm going to put a link down in the description of a quiz that I want you to take. You know, my gifts are always things that give you knowledge ammo and help you sharpen the saw. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little um, something something, which is going to be a quiz. All right, it's going to be a fun quiz, but it's going to give you a good run for your time, I can assure you. Jude has seen the worst. Jude, you've seen the worst. So you've seen the worst mock exam there is. Jude took the marathon mock, so enough said. All right, let's get back to business. So on to alternatives generation. I think I gave a high-level description of this, and I said you're trying to generate alternatives for carrying out the work. You know, different methods could be used. This is where you generate the ideas and you come out with one method and you decide to use one method. All right. So Manoj, I'm looking forward to seeing. That was good, Jude. To be really honest, it's a tough exam. So well done. A key thing, of course, is closing the gaps. All right. So after alternatives generation, we've got a favorite. I want to give you guys a challenge. This next one I'm showing you here, analogous estimating. Can you guys chat into me? And it's a very easy challenge. This is not too bad. Can you chat into me the processes that this is used in? Pinpoint precise. In which processes do you use analogous? No peeking. If you have the PMBOK guide, you want to put a padlock on it. This has to come directly from the source, from your brain. You know what I'm saying? Has to come from your brain. All right. EAR says Dev. Are you right, Dev? Analogous? Are you sure? Marwan, good to see you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sahir, for your kind comments. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Sandy. Thank you, Sandy. Sandy got one of them right. Krishna, thank you. You got one of them right. Thank you, Dev. You got one of them right. Which one is missing? Dev got it. Woohoo! Thank you, Dev. That is what I'm talking about. Estimate activity duration and estimate cost. Do not fall into the trap of putting analogous estimating in determine budget. It does not fall into determine budget, and it does not fall into estimate activity resources. Like we covered last week, that is bottom up. So very good. Thank you, Marwan, and everyone else who chatted in. Awesome. So when we use analogous estimating, can you guys type in a phrase or a word that jumps into your brain? Could be like a two-word thing that jumps into your brain when you hear analogous estimating. What jumps into your head? 2 words. Analogous estimating. I'll give you a clue. Thank you, Dev. Dev has chatted in one word that comes into his head. Thank you, Jude. Jude says similar to another. Krishna, that is exactly what I'm looking for. Good job. Historical information. Everything else that was chatted in is also relevant. Thank you, Sandy. And thank you, Sally here. And Atif, thank you very much. Fantastic. You guys are all over this stuff. Good job. So analogous estimating uses historical information, but what distinguishes it from parametric is it does not use uh, an algorithm. It's pretty much just the historical information. We did this in the past, so this is what the current project is going to be. It doesn't go into all the fancy algorithms and factoring in the learning curve and so on and so forth. Hey, Manoj just dropped some gold. I saw some gold coming through. This is like the second time I'm hearing something similar. You better listen up, folks. Manoj says, PMBOK guide is the answer to all. Study and understand and relate the concepts in the PMBOK guide. If you cannot relate them, then imagine. Fantastic. You got to imagine it. Absolutely. You got to think. Thank you very much. Keep dropping that gold, Manoj. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. So online sale here. It just clicked what exactly your name means. Online sale here. How funny. Okay. I was thinking it was some fancy pronunciation. Online sale here. Parametric means use formula. Thank you very much, online sales. Fantastic. We are on to the next one. I jumped into analytical techniques. So I wanted to give you guys a quick name. Mustafa. Thank you, Mustafa. Mustafa is online sale here. Good. So analytical techniques, we've got a few processes that this is used. But I want to just encourage you to open up the PMBOK guide, folks. What Manoj dropped is so right on. It is so true. For analytical techniques like this, you got to open up the PMBOK guide. You got to piece it apart. You got to take each process and say, analytical techniques. Why am I using analytical techniques in monitor and control project work? What exactly am I analyzing? And then you come to a realization that you're getting work performance information as an input to monitor and control project work. This is where you are analyzing that work performance information further and trying to put it together into a work performance report. This is where you're looking at all sorts of information you've got from various sources and you're analyzing to come out with a coherent report. You got this ton of information, you're going to whittle it down through analysis, you're going to present it in a report that management understands. If you look at all the other ones, close project or phase, you're going to use various analytical techniques to analyze, is this project really finished? Is it done? Or how much do we have left? Or at the point that your project was shut down, you're going to ask, at what point did we close the project? And what was the amount of work remaining that we didn't complete? And all these questions. Plan schedule management, you're going to analyze what scheduling tool should we use? What kind of project is this? What kind of scheduling metrics do we need? The same for plan cost, plan risk, and plan stakeholder management. Anytime you see analytical techniques in plan something, you are analyzing how best should we manage this particular aspect? How best should we run this knowledge area? So on and so forth. All right. So that's pretty much what that's all about. And then we've also got it in conduct procurement. What are you analyzing in conduct procurement? Someone chat into me. What do you think you are analyzing in conduct procurement? What is your analytical tech? Thank you, Dev. Dev just hammered that one in. It's bids. You're analyzing the bids. You're analyzing what contract type is best based on this bid that came in. And there's a lot of, back and forth, negotiating, analysis. All this stuff is interwoven. Sandy says the bid. You got that right. Very good. Let's move on. Approved change requests review. So what exactly are we doing here? Approved change request review is a bit of a mouthful. Thank you, Marwan, I see that. So when you see approved change request review, you are reviewing approved change requests. Why? Why are you reviewing approved change requests? You're reviewing them because you have implemented them and you need to make sure that those approved change requests have indeed been carried out successfully. So without you looking at your PMBOK guide, I want you to think about it. You get a deliverable, but the deliverable has a change request associated with it. That change request goes to the change control board, it's approved, you get an approved change request. You have to rework that change request. For example, my phone has got a change request associated with it. We need to rework that approved change request into version 2 of the phone. Version 2 of the phone comes back, I need to do an approved change request review on version 2. That's really what this is all about. So the process that we do our approved change request review is control quality, because you had version 1, had a change request, which was approved. You got version 2, you have to do a review. You have to make sure that that change, maybe the change was phone is too big. All right, come back with the revised version And now you're making sure that that approved change request to reduce the size is indeed inherent in the deliverable. That's what your approved change request review is. So it's a tool and technique of control quality. Just remember that. Now, to further link approved change request review with something else, I want you to think about what it means. If you have now done your approved change request review and you found, yeah, we've reduced the size of the phone, it's now the right size. We also have an output. Now, I know today's tools and techniques, but I want you to associate this output with approved change request review. Approved change request review is linked with validated changes, because if indeed that change request is now inherent in this revised deliverable, the output is validated changes. You see where I'm going? So I want you to think about how it's all linked. We get a change request, it gets approved. We have an approved change request, it gets worked on in direct and managed project work. We get version 2 of the deliverable. That goes into control quality. You do your inspection, you do your approved change request review. You found out that indeed this thing is what you said. And then this is now our verified deliverable, as Dev chatted in. Very good, Dev. So we get a verified deliverable, and at the same time, we're also getting validated changes. We're getting validation that that change request has indeed been implemented. It's all woven together, folks. It's all one matrix. So let's see, I got some chats come in. Let me see who chatted in. Haha, Manoj is still dropping some PMBOK guide stuff here. Manoj, tell me, what's your next big thing? Now you're PMP, what are you going to do next? Are you going to train your firm? Are you going to become a PMP trainer and coach as well? I want to encourage you, do what you got to do. Do the next big thing. Marwan says it's related to conformance. Yes, indeed. Approved change request review. We're trying to make sure that indeed we have conformed to that change request, that approved change request. Dev is dropping some PMBOK gold, so he's using, by the time you get to the point where you're now using acronyms to describe processes, you know that you've really gone into the PMBOK guide. Dev is using some acronyms, so he says, go to VS, get AD. So do you know what he means by that? He means go to validate scope and get accepted deliverables. He is in the world of, he is immersed. He is in the world of PMBOK big time. Well done, Dev. Awesome. All right. So moving on here. Approved change request review. We've talked about that. I hope that now makes sense. We now have assumptions analysis. So why are we analyzing our assumptions? Our assumptions could be faulty, And that's why we need to do an assumptions analysis. In identifying risks, you want to go through a boatload of information. In fact, in identify risks, you look at all of your documentation, all of your plans, all of your baselines, all of your assumptions. You want to do an assumptions analysis. So you want to make sure that your assumptions are truly valid. You want to make sure that they are exactly what you said they were in a particular document. So in order to do an assumptions analysis, you should have your project scope statement, because that's where we've got inclusions, exclusions, constraints, and assumptions. Thank you, Dev. So Dev is chatted in that the constraints also need to be under review, and he's absolutely right. So thank you very much, those of you who have taken the time to hit the like button or the share button and bring in your buddies who are also trying to get this beast off their backs. I appreciate that. The more people know about this, the better. Okay, benchmarking. I want to challenge you folks. Think about benchmarking. Where exactly do you use benchmarking? There are two places that benchmarking can be used. Benchmarking is a tool and technique that we use in the early stage of chatting. Let me make sure that you are actually in the zone, the PMBOK zone. Thank you, Mustafa. He says comparing our services with others. Jude says, Oh, Jude hammered it home. Collect requirements and plan quality. Very, very good. Those are the two that we use benchmarking. Now, we can use benchmarking in some other shapes or forms, but I often encourage people to do what Jude did, and that is hammer home pinpoint precision. Where is the exact places that the PMI call them out? Okay, so benchmarking officially, excuse me, is collect requirements and plan quality management. Very good. All right, let's move on to our next one. Next one here is BITA Conference. Oh, you guys know this. So, what should you look out for in a BITA conference? You got all these bidders, they're showing up to the conference, but you got a lot of bidders who didn't know each other prior. And now they're all in one place, sitting in close proximity. You're answering their questions. What do you need to be aware of in a BITA conference? In a BITA conference, as the buyer, let me change the question, Dev. So you're trying to understand scope as the seller, but as the buyer, what should you be aware of? What should you be looking out for? What should you be making sure does not happen? Make sure you're answering all the questions. Good. Make sure you give the same information to everyone. That's a good one, Sandy. Awesome. That is a very, very true statement. We don't want favoritism, but we're trying to make sure we give everyone the same information. Atif says, make sure there is a common understanding. Absolutely, Atif. Very good. Now, one more thing that you need to be aware of. Mustafa said, make sure you give important information to all sellers. That's true. Can the sellers hurt you in some way? Could the sellers do something that would hurt you? What could the sellers do that could hurt you? Think about it. So Phil and Mustafa are sellers and they come to the BITA conference. They've never met anyone in the conference before. What could they do? No favoritism, says Krishna. The word is collusion. You want to beware that these sellers don't gang up on you. It's not very common, but it could happen. And if it is one of those projects where you've got very few people that can deliver the goods and services, if they gang up on you, you're in trouble. So collusion, beware of collusion. Okay, it's not in the PMBOK guide though, but it's an unspoken awareness in the industry. Okay, bottom up estimating. Can you chat into me? Pinpoint precise. There are two processes in the PMBOK guide. Krishna has already typed in estimate cost. He's right. So estimate cost, you've got all the four being used. Which other one? Thank you, Mustafa. That's correct. Thank you, Sudhir. Sudhir typed in the second one, estimate activity duration. So it's EAC, well, EC, estimate cost, and EAD. It's the duration, estimate activity duration, that uses. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting it wrong. It's EAR. So I'm getting them mixed up. EAR uses bottom up, not EAD. EAD uses the other three. So let's have a backtrack. Let me get this right. So EAR is the one I spoke about last week that you decompose down and you roll them up. And that's an estimate activity resources. So if you typed in resources, you're right. It gets even the best of us. So much stuff. And then estimate cost uses all four. So obviously bottom up falls into estimate cost. Estimate cost is the only one that uses all four. So keep that in mind. Estimate cost is bottom up, parametric, 3-point analogous. Estimate activity resources is bottom up alone. Estimate activity durations is the other three, parametric, analogous, and 3-point. Okay? It takes some getting used to. So go read that up again. So the two that use bottom up EAR, as you rightfully chatted in, someone rightfully chatted that in, estimate activity resources and estimate costs. So I got a little bit excited with the chats and didn't realize it's EAR that uses bottom up. All right. So that's bottom up. Don't mix bottom up estimating with um, cost aggregation. It's easy to mix up those two. Don't mix them up. Cost aggregation, you already have your estimates, you're rolling them up. But bottom up, you are trying to estimate. You don't have your estimates. You're breaking down the task further to be able to assess how many resources you need or to be able to assess how much money the activity will take. All right. We're doing very well. We are on schedule. Next one here, change control tools. This is so easy. Can you guys chat into me? Which process are change control tools used in? And also, I would like you to give me an idea of a change control tool. It could be anything. Anything that comes to mind, you can even make it up right now. Thank you, Dev. Dev chatted in the acronym PICC. Thank you. Thank you, Mustafa. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Krishna. I like the way you guys abbreviate this stuff. Jude, right on. Perform integrated change control. Now, go a step further and give me an example. You can make it up. You could put in a description, but I'm curious to know, what do you see these tools to be? Thank you, Sudhir. Krishna says PMIS. He's absolutely correct. You could look at your PMIS as a type if it has that ability. Your PMIS, your Project Management Information System, if it has the ability for you to manage change requests and the whole change process, right on, that could very well be looked at. Mustafa says it is PMIS. Very, very good. Give me an example of something else apart from. So when we hear system, a lot of people, they liken systems to automated stuff, but it may not necessarily be automated. What about a sheet of paper that has a change control function? So you've got change requests in a log. Thank you, Dev. So you got change requests in a log, but it's on paper. And you've got names of people that have to sign on each request, like back in the old days. So PMIS, definitely. I like this one from Mustafa. He says it's procedure, how we can make or do the changes. Very good. Just make sure, follow what Manoj said. If you read it, you want to anchor it back to something that you can actually imagine or something that you've seen in the past. Very good. All right, next one, checklist analysis. So, where do we use our checklist analysis? We've got a checklist. We need to analyze it. Why are we analyzing our checklist? What are we looking for? What are we doing with the checklist? So there are two places that you have the word checklist. This is not the one that pertains to quality. This is the one that pertains to risk. Thank you, Jay. Good to see you. Very, very good. Jay typed in it's identify risk. Atif said it's identify risk. You are absolutely correct. So on a previous project, you could have had a checklist of possible risks. You want to take that checklist and use it in your current project. So this is something from the past. You're using it on your current project. Very important one to use, especially on projects where you've got recurring, project types where you've got recurring risks. It happened on project A, happened on project B, or a list of risks that happen on almost every construction project or almost every IT project. You know what I'm talking about? That's your checklist analysis. Good. Let's move on. And there goes my PowerPoint. Let me try to redeem my PowerPoint. Okay. You gotta love Microsoft. All right. Claims administration. What exactly is claims administration? And where do we use claims administration? Can someone chat into me? Where do we use claims administration? Control procurement. You guys are right on. Thank you, Mustafa and Krishna and Dev and Sudhir and Jude. It is indeed control procurements. Yes. So as you are doing your claims administration, you're doing all the management of these claims. You're doing all the documentation and so on. Can you tell me any buzzwords in your head that you immediately associate with the word claims? You hear claims, what do you associate that with in your head? Very good. Thank you, Krishna. You want to think about recording those claims in your records management system. Good. Jude says warranty. Yep, people can immediately come out with all of these claims. Thank you, Krishna. Yes, dispute between the buyer and the seller. That is good. Contractual disputes. Thank you, Dev. ADR, says Jay. Atif says dispute as well. Very good. So the word dispute, you want to link that back to ADR. Can someone chat in? What is ADR? What is ADR? What does it mean? I know you know what it means, but help those who don't. What does it mean? ADR. I know you know what it means. Thank you, Jay. Alternate dispute resolution. Alternative dispute resolution. All right. Can you chat into me? What are some of the alternatives under ADR? Let me know what are the alternatives that we have. I'm sure Jay knows the answer to that one since ADR was typed in by him. Oh dear. Okay, a third party makes a decision. Good. What do we call that one when the third party makes a decision? Someone typed in negotiation. Very good. Dev typed in settlement. What are the two ADR types? Mediation, says Jude. Thank you. That's one I was looking for. Now, which one does a third party decide for the people in the dispute? What's that one called? Or did I miss it? So you've typed in mediation, the A word, arbitration. In arbitration, a third party decides. Thank you, Jay. Very good. All right. So let's move on here to our next one. The claims administration. Next is colocation. This is where you colocate the team. This needs no introduction. Think about it. Why would you put the team in the same place? To make sure that they cut through the 5 stages of team development even quicker. Because you got those 5 stages of team development. You know what they are? What are the 5 stages of team development, by the way? I know you know it. Can you type all the 5 together all at once so that I know that you truly remember all 5? Thank you for that one, Krishna. Type in all the 5 together and shoot them off to me. Thank you, Sudhir. Put them all together. Put them all together. Put them all together. Thank you, Jude. Forming, norming, storming, performing, and adjourning. Quick on the button. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Sandy. Very good. Thank you all very much. Very good. Dev, thank you. Can you guys do one more thing? Do me one more favor. The 5 stages of team development. So a thief types in an acronym, FNSPA, forming, norming, okay. So yeah, some of you type them in a different order, but you first of all forming, then storming, then norming, then performing, then adjourning. Very good. Can you type in, folks, what is the last stage called, in addition to being called adjourning? What else do we call the last stage of team development? Final stage. It could be called adjourning, which is most popular, but it could also be called drumroll. I know you guys know it. Someone knows it. What do we call it? A final stage. You get to the final stage, and your buddy, Mustafa, you're upset that Mustafa is going his own way, Phil is going his own way, Jude is going his own way, Atif is going his own way. Sandy says releasing. What do we call it? It is called an M word, mourning. This is where you're sad. You're mourning. It's also called the mourning stage. MOURNING. Mourning, mourning. Like you're mourning that the team has to go their separate ways. Also called the mourning stage. Thank you, Dev. Now, before we leave colocation, colocation is often associated with getting the team to cut through the 5 stages of team development. But can you also tell me what is the name of the gentleman who came up with this concept? Yeah, bringing all people into a room, a war room. Absolutely, Mustafa. That's right. So, chatting to me, folks. What is the gentleman? Jude is very close. Very, very close. Close. It's not Chris Tucker's relative. It's not Chris Tucker's friend. Tuck what? Tuckman. Tuckman's ladder. Just keep that in mind. It's also called Tuckman's ladder. Okay? 5 stages of team development. Good. Not sure how useful that is on the exam, but you never can tell. Communication methods. There are 3 communication methods, folks. Interactive, push, and pull. Interactive, free form, real time. Thank you, Judy. Thanks for chatting in. Thanks for joining today. Dev types in push, pull, and interactive. And so does Mustafa, push, pull. I see that. Very good. So we use this in 3 places. Do you know the 3 places? They're on the screen anyway. Plan communications management. This is where you're deciding how best to communicate. Thank you, Judy. Always happy to have new folks joining our group. Manage communications. You're also in the art of communicating, but this is where you are actually doing the communications. So there's legwork going on. You're going to stakeholders. You're speaking to them. You're sharing information. So interactive push-pull comes in here as well. Manage stakeholder engagement. This is where you are communicating with an intent to get stakeholders engaged. Okay? So plan communications management, manage communications, and manage stakeholder engagement. Now, bear in mind, you could get scenarios on the exam that describe a managed communication scenario or describe a managed stakeholder engagement scenario. You need to be able to distinguish between both. If you're managing communications, you are sending out information. You're not sending out information with an intent to engage necessarily, but you're sending out information to various stakeholders. They could be stakeholders you're trying to engage, but they could also be stakeholders who you're just supplying information. You could also be using a pull method where it's up to them to go grab it. And if they don't go grab it, well, it's up to them. But managed stakeholder engagement is extremely focused on communicating with an intent to engage or carrying out actions with an intent to engage. Now, the only way that we can get across to people is by communicating. And that's why in managed stakeholder engagement, we use those methods as a tool and technique. We could be interacting with one of our stakeholders. Maybe we've got a stakeholder, Judy is our stakeholder, and Phil is the project manager. Phil needs to communicate with an intent to engage Judy, our stakeholder, to be aware, hey, this is what's going on the project. We need your attention. We need you to move some weight, move some people who are in the way, who are being obstacles. But we're doing it with an intent to engage that stakeholder. You see, this is all about engagement. All right. So I would encourage you, go read up. At the beginning of each process, PMI and the PMBOK guide, they describe what each process is. There's a lot of gold there, folks. So go read those up. It's really going to help you. All right. So very good. Those of you who knew where those were used, communication models, sender-receiver models, very important. What do we call it when we are thinking about something and we need to translate that into a meaningful language? What do we call that? We got something in our heads. We're trying to convert it into a meaningful language that, if spoken, people understand. What do we call that? We're trying to get this idea and put it into a meaningful language to send it out. Encode is the word. Thank you very much. And on the flip side, decode is we hear what is said and we're trying to understand what has been said. Very good. So anyway, all of those, decode, encode, transmission of the message, feedback message, all of that stuff, go look at that, because on the exam, again, you could be given a description of encode or a description of decode, and you need to know what exactly those mean. All right? Moving along, communication requirements analysis. So can you type into me that infamous formula for this? I'm sure you know that formula in your sleep for communication requirements analysis. What is the formula? What is the formula? Thank you, Dev. And it is n times n minus 1 divided by 2. Don't forget your brackets. I'm sure you already know where the brackets go. Thank you, Jude. Thank you, Krishna. Appreciate that. You are absolutely right. On the exam, they could give you a description that is very slimy. Very slimy in that you got so many stakeholders hidden in the description. You're going to have to mine to find out who are the stakeholders. How many stakeholders are they really? So on and so forth. All right, that is definitely one you can expect to find on the exam. So let me see. I'm kind of inclined to give you a quiz on this, just to kick the tires and make sure you really know. Let me give you a very easy one first. Okay? I'm sure you're probably going to be able to spit this out in 2 seconds. All right. You got a stakeholder on the project. Well, you've got a bunch of stakeholders on the project. There are 7 channels of communication. 7 channels of communication. Is that possible, to have 7 channels of communication? Can someone work that out for me? 7 channels of communication, is that a possibility? Could there be 7 channels of communication on a project? If there's 7 channels, how many stakeholders are there? Is that so? You see where I'm going with this? I'm trying to get you to test what I've thrown out. Could there really be 7 channels of communication on a project? Does that sound right? If I have 7 channels of communication, how many stakeholders do I have? Krishna says it's not possible. Very good. You see where I'm going with this? All right. Is it possible for me to have 8 channels of communication? How about 8? Is that doable? Now, why am I doing this to you? I'm doing this to you because on the exam, they could come in the reverse. So they could give you a number and say, based on the number of channels, how many stakeholders are there? Keep that in mind, okay? I'm going to give you a problem to work on now. So here's the problem. So it says, I'm not sure how well you can read this, but it says, You are the project manager on a multi-year hardware refresh project across 5 continents. Okay? There are 4 stakeholders in each continent and 5 stakeholders who work across various continents at different times. You are based in the head office. How many channels of communication are there? Read it carefully. Can you read it? Does it show clearly enough? I hope it does. How many channels of communication are there? Thank you, Arshad. Appreciate that. You are close. You are close, it seems. Well, closer than everyone else who's chatted in, I'd say that. Let's read it again. You are the project manager on a multi-year hardware refresh project across 5 continents. There are 4 stakeholders in each continent. Atif, that is a very, very good answer. Atif has typed in a very interesting answer. Very good. Jude has typed in an answer that is rather close, very close. So read it again. This is part of what I was saying they could do on the exam. This is part of what I was saying they could do to you. 4 stakeholders in each continent. 5 stakeholders who work across various continents. See? So you need a count. And then it says you are based in the head office. Did you forget yourself? You see where I'm going with this? So you've got different continents, 4 people on each one, 5 people who are like roaming around different continents, and then there's you. So how many? Atif, do me a favor. So Atif got the question right. Atif is the only one who got the question correct. Krishna just typed in the right answer as well. Dev, that's close. So Atif, type into us, what is your N? Thank you, Asha. That is right. So you've typed in the N. If you know the N, then you'll get it right. If you don't know the N, then you're wrong. So here were the options. To make it fair, let me do the PMP exam style where you would actually have the options. But I didn't want the options to blind you, because if you had seen that option, you would have been happy, but that's not the right answer. Also, that is not the right answer. You can see all your options were here, you see, but there was only one correct answer. And the answer was that one. C. You see where I'm going with this, folks? So you need to be on your A game. You know, PMI are not going to give you the namby-pamby project manager, and they're gonna be savage on the exam. You see. Thank you, Atif, for chatting that in. So Atif has chatted in. There are 26 people. And Atif, you're absolutely right. 26. Very good. All right. So let's try and get to D, where our descriptions are concerned. And I got to go see family, folks. So I need to go see my mom. My mom's going to be calling my phone if I don't get off this meeting. She's already been calling me. When are you going to come see me? So I need to get off this meeting in a little bit. But before I do, let's try and hit D. So the next one is communication technology. Communication technology. And you guys probably know about this or not. But there are various things you need to be thinking about when it comes to communication technology. Can anyone type into me, what are some of the considerations that you need to consider before introducing certain communication technologies to your project. There are certain things that you need to be thinking about. So thank you very much for typing in those communication technology types. I appreciate that. A PMI says you should also think about the circumstances under which you introduce that communication technology. So can anybody type those in? Thank you, Jay. Jay has been mining the PMBOK guide. And that's exactly what I want you guys to do. Mine the PMBOK guide. So let's see what Jay typed in. Jay typed in one of those considerations. Very important. Urgency and ease of use. Very good. The availability of technology is also one. The project environment. There's a need to determine if the team will meet and operate on a face-to-face basis or in a virtual environment. So if you're face-to-face, do we need to use chat? We're in the same room, for goodness sake. You know what I mean? But if you are geographically dispersed, then of course, maybe chat and all that stuff is used. Also, sensitivity of the information, confidentiality could also come in. Page 292 in the PMBOK guide. That's why I put that there. So look at page 292 in the PMBOK guide. Very good. Very good. You got to know your audience exactly. Are they technically skilled to know how to use? Some folks don't use chat because it's too complicated for them. So just know who you're dealing with. Know your audience and all that stuff. Good. All right. Moving on here. Conflict management. This is always one of interest on the exam because various types of conflict resolution approaches exist. So I would like you guys to chat into me. What is the preferred method for conflict resolution? The preferred method that PMI says is a win-win, a winner-winner. We want everyone to win. We don't want to win. Thank you. Collaborating, says Krishna. The problem solving, also called collaborating, also called confronting. You guys are hitting home runs. My goodness. I got all three definitions or all three names for the same definition. You guys are fantastic, That is a rarity. I haven't seen that in any study group where you give me all of the names. Confront, problem solve, and collaborate. They all mean the same thing. Thank you for dropping that gold, folks. You're hitting home runs. I love it. I love it. Collaborate, problem solve, confront. Thank you, Jay. Mangesh, thank you very much for dialing in and joining us today. I appreciate your participation. Fantastic. You guys are awesome. Good job. All right. Context diagrams. This is always a fun one because when we talk about context diagrams, a lot of people who are not in IT, they often scratch their head and say, never used it, never heard of it. But when you begin to break it down, they say, oh, that makes sense. Going back to what Manoj said in the beginning, you got to imagine it. So what does a context diagram show you? Chat into me and tell me, what does a context diagram show you? It is most of the time used for business, says Mustafa. Thank you very much. You are right in saying that. It's used in collect requirements, says Jay. And it shows you interfaces. I love the way you just take it and boom, you give me a key word. Well done. That is what I'm talking about. Jude says to reflect the flow. Very good, Jude. So you guys are doing the right thing. Take PMBOK, whittle it down into something you understand, come out with your own idea of how to define it. Mustafa says, defines the boundary between the system. Dropping gold. Very good. So if you haven't seen a context diagram, I want to encourage you to look at one. It shows you the interactions between what the PMBOK guide calls actors. And these actors are people or entities that are interacting with a business system. It shows you The information going into the business system, who is inputting the information in, who is bringing the information out. Achintia says, shows the external interfaces to the system. Very good. You guys are all over this. Fantastic. I love it. Very, very good. All right. So don't lose track of the reason why we're doing this. SAP, everyone knows SAP. A lot of people use SAP. The interactions between SAP and the people putting the information in, getting the information out, other systems interacting with SAP, you can put all that into a diagram. That's really what that is, context diagram. Good. All right, moving along. Can anyone explain what this is? Give me a blurb that explains contingent response strategies. And tell me, where do we use them? Which process do we use CRS? Very important one. Contingent response strategies. So I can see a chat or chats. Let's see what you guys have chatted in. Mustafa says it's used in planning risk responses. Dev says RR risk responses good. Jude says to respond to risks, and Sandy says plan risk responses very good. Awesome, PRR. Now, I want you guys to go a step further this weekend. I want you to unravel, and you can write this down, unravel the difference between contingent response strategies and workarounds. What is the difference between contingent response strategies and workarounds? Now, in addition to that, I want you to also study what is the difference between contingent response strategies, workarounds, and fallback plans, right? So contingent response strategy versus workaround versus fallback plan, and then again versus contingency plan. It's kind of a play on some of the words, but I want you to go study all of these terminologies. Contingent response strategies, where you're going to find the mention of fallback plans, contingency plans, but versus workaround. I'm going to leave you guys to be professors of that. And I'm getting some chats in. Mustafa is correct. So Mustafa is online sale here, for those of you who didn't know. If you hear me say Mustafa, that's online sale here. Kaushik, thank you very much for dialing in and chatting in. So contingency is done in planning. Workarounds are done in executing. That's an interesting way of looking at it. We can also do our contingency planning where? We can do our contingency planning at a point before the risk happens. That's the key thing. And if you take what Kaushik said and you think about it, you do a workaround as a response to a risk that you didn't see coming. So anyway, there's a lot that goes into that. Zian, thank you very much for dialing in and chatting as well. I'm gonna leave you guys to check that out over the weekend. So again, contingent response strategies, fallback plans, contingency plans, and workarounds. You need to unravel all of these because honestly, folks, on the exam, put these all together. If you don't know these, PMI can run around you in circles. Very important. Then take it to the next level. What is the difference between all of these four things versus avoid, transfer, mitigate, and accept? Very important to unravel all of these. And, next week I'm going to be asking you more questions about this stuff. Contract change control system. We use our contract change control system in control procurement. If there needs to be a change to the contract, then we had better have a change control system. Otherwise, it's just going to be loosey-goosey. It's just going to be all over the place. But no, that we have to agree beforehand under what circumstances can this contract change. Very important one. Very good, Mustafa. Thank you. We have got quite a few left, so I'm going to go because I wanted to hit letter D today. Next one, cost aggregation. We talked about this. This is used in the determined budget process, and this is where you roll all of those costs up into a final total amount. All right, next, cost of quality, COQ. I would like you guys to chat into me. What are the two broad categories for cost of quality? Two broad categories. Not the details, but the broad categories. You know what they are. Cost of what and cost of what. Cost of what and cost of what. Thank you, Dev. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you very much. Cost of conformance and cost of non-conformance. All right. So let me throw you out one. Training cost. Where would you categorize training cost? Would you put that in the cost of non-conformance or the cost of conformance? Thank you very much. I see you chatting that in. Thank you, Sandy. Yep. You'll put that into cost of conformance. All right. Good. Let's go a step further. Thank you, Achintia and Jude and Arshad, Jay, Marwan. You guys are killing it. You guys are slaying it. Very good. Thank you, Sudhir. Very good. All right. So Sudhir says it's conformance. Let's go a step further. Let's take cost of conformance. Let's break it down into two. Break down cost of conformance for me into two big buckets. How do you break down cost of conformance into two big buckets, folks? Cost of conformance, break it down. Two big buckets for cost of conformance. Thank you very much, Jay. PC and AC. PC and AC are prevention cost and appraisal cost. So prevention cost, training, documenting your processes, buying the right equipment, spending time to do it the right way. That's prevention. If you have wrong equipment, you're going to come out with rubbish. If you don't spend time doing it right, you're trying to rush, you're going to come out with garbage, right? So prevention cost, training, documenting your processes, equipment, buying the right equipment or quality equipment, and spending time to do it right. Appraisal cost is when you are assessing the quality. So testing is like appraisal cost. Destructive testing loss. Using my phone as the example, under what tensile strength do we need to put this before it breaks apart? Destructive testing loss, inspections, these are all appraisal cost. So PC and AC, cost of conformance, just remember, cost of conformance, good cost, prevention cost, and appraisal cost. Now let's talk about the ones that everybody knows, cost of non-conformance. Break that down into two big buckets. Cost of non-conformance. Break that down into two big buckets. IFC and EFC. Those should ring a bell. IFC and EFC. Thank you, Marwan. I for internal and E for external. Internal failure cost. Those costs that you see just before it went out to the customer, but you still want to give your team a kick for missing that when you were doing the appraisal. How could you miss that? So internal failure costs, things like rework and scrap. You realize you just printed out 20 manuals for stakeholder and they all have an unpardonable error. You know, there's going to be rework and those are scrap. You can't use those. So internal failure costs, rework and scrap. Thank you very much, folks, for those of you chatting in. Some good stuff here. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you. So corrective, where you're doing your corrective action, it means that you've gone too far So if you've gone too far, corrective action could fall into you're correcting your processes. So corrective action is not going to generate a deliverable that's defective. It's when you have rework or when you have scrap that alludes to defect repair. Defect repair means, well, let's say rework. Yeah, rework would be your defect repair, Sandy. So corrective action, it could actually fall more into the line of if you do your appraisal well, you would find out that you need to correct your current actions. So there are two things here. You're bringing in a lot of good stuff from um, direct and managed project work because we've got corrective action and preventive action. And then we've got defect repair. Defect repair, let's just push that to your failure cost, right? Internal failure cost, external failure cost, let's push that over there. But when you talk about preventive action, that is good. Corrective action, debatable but largely good because you haven't come out with scrap or a defect at this point. But by the time you come out with rework and scrap, you're talking about a defect, and that costs money, more money than it normally should. Let me see the other chats that came in here. Warranty cost and rework, says Koshik. Thank you very much. Mustafa says internal and external failure examples. Yes, rework, warranty work, liability, lost business. Very good. All that stuff. So I guess the reason why I call this out a lot of times is we just say cost of conformance, cost of non-conformance. But we have to break that down. Cost of conformance has to be broken down into PC and AC. Cost of non-conformance has to be broken down into IFC and EFC. Okay, so just do a little bit of charting. Cost of conformance, money spent during the project to avoid failures. So going back again to Sandy's comment, if you are within the project and you're spending money to avoid failures, you take corrective action at the right time through your appraisal, you realize, wow, we need to correct this process. That's good. But if it's after the fact of your defect coming out of the conveyor belt, we're talking about after the fact of the production, too late, you've already got your defect, you're going to have rework, you could have scrap if your defect can't be repaired, you got to redo it all over again. So thinking in that line. Very good. Great questions. All right. Cost benefit analysis. Where do we do a CBA? What are you analyzing in your cost benefit analysis? Now, I don't want you to get this mixed up with your business case because I know that in the business case, you do some of that. But where do you do your CBA? Cost benefit analysis. So I'm not talking about in the beginning. This is not in initiating. Thank you, Sandy. Sandy is right on. So it is done in plan quality management. What are we trying to analyze? We're trying to do an analysis of how much money and how much investment should we put in, or do we need to put in for quality on this project? Okay. So if you haven't tied this specifically to quality, do that. Let's say your project is a $1 million project, but to do the $1 million project, you need to build an $800,000 lab. That could be problematic. So you need to ask yourself, what is the benefit of carrying out, certain quality measures on the project? If you don't do it, you could get a fine. If you do it, well, you don't get a fine. But is it worth it? Does it make sense? Doing a cost benefit analysis from a quality standpoint could result in your project being shut down or could result in you saying, we're not doing this project again. The cost of quality is too high. How much are we going to gain from this project? Doesn't make sense. So very good. Thank you, all of you who chatted in. Jay, Dev, Atif, Zian, thank you very much. Appreciate your chats. You are right in the zone. Exactly, Dev. So you're trying to distinguish between what is the quality standard, and how much do we really have to spend on quality? Lots of questions could arise from this. Very good. All right, we have our final one in the letter C. Final one, the critical chain method. Oh, I should say second to the last. Critical chain method. So when you think about critical chain method, thank you, Dev, for that chat. I see that. When you think about critical chain method, can you guys chat into me? What are some of the key words that come into your head? Critical chain method. There are some key words based on our last two meetings. There are some keywords I'm expecting to come into your head right away. Keywords, not necessarily process names, but keywords of things that you're like, oh yeah, those terms are associated with this thing here. Limited resources, good, good. So the critical chain is your resource constraint critical path. Anything else? A resource limitation, limited resources, yes. But can you chat into me? There is one thing I'm looking for. One thing that makes the critical chain what it is. Okay, let me think. How does PMI put it? Non-work schedule activities in this are called what? Non-work schedule activities are known as what? Thank you, Jay. That is exactly where I'm going. Feed-in buffers and project buffers. Very good, Jay. So your feed-in buffers and project buffers, they are non-work scheduled activities. They don't have work in them. They look like activities, but they're just buffers, buffers of time. All right, what is the collective name for project buffers and feed-in buffers that Jay just chatted in? There's a collective name. Thank you, Dev. Duration buffers. We are almost at the end. Last one, critical path method. Now, those of you that chatted in forward pass, backward pass, all that stuff, this is the one you were probably thinking about. So, I would like you to chat into me. How do you find project slack? How do you find project slack? Thank you, Mustafa, for that. It is indeed the longest path that you need to complete the project. Well, the longest path and the shortest time within which you can complete the project. If you haven't worked out that kind of oxymoronish sounding definition, keep thinking about it. You cannot get the project done any quicker, so it's the longest path and the shortest time. Oxymoronish. All right, so tell me, folks, how do you find project slack? When we talk about the critical path, E minus L. Did you hear what I said? Project slack. Project slack. Not free slack, not total slack, but project slack. Because I know you already know late start minus early start, late finish minus early finish. All that stuff is more to do with, your total slack. So not that, project slack. Thank you, Jude, you're very close. So project slack has to do with the difference between your customer required due date. Let's say your customer wants the project to be handed over here, the deliverable to be handed over here. This is your end date. So end date of project, customer required due date. That difference is project slack. So if your project ended on the 20th, your customer wants the deliverable on the 30th, it's the 30 minus 20. All right? So it's the customer required due date minus the project end date. Just keep that in mind. All right. Bit of a trick question. All right. When it comes to free slack, chat into me. Let me make sure that you truly know free slack. What is the formula for free slack? Free slack. Free slack is between two activities. That's the clue. Free slack. Free slack is not within one box. I think what you chatted in is total slack, but I'm asking for free slack. Free slack of A is ES, says Sandy. Let me take a look at that chat in closer detail. For free slack of A equals ES of B. Oh, I see what you mean, minus ES. Okay, so early start of the successor, I think that's what you meant, ES of B, minus what of A, Sandy? Minus what? You're close. You're very close. Early start of the successor minus the what? The early finish of the task in question. So if you have task A and B, if B, this is A, this is B, the early start of the successor minus the early finish of the task in question will tell you the free slack of this. If I want the free slack of this, it has to be the early start of this minus, or the early finish of this, no, early start of this minus the early finish of this. It gets all complicated. I'm looking at myself in the mirror and trying to turn it around in my head. So early start of successor minus early finish of the task in question. Okay? Keep that in mind. It's very important because there's a difference between free slack and total slack. And I think some of us are mixing them up. So let's go fine-tune that. Okay. Let me see if I can bring up an image to make sure that we are entirely clear on this, because I do not want you to be confused. So let me open up something from the dreaded chapter 6 that we all love to read, right? Don't you love chapter 6? Do you know what makes chapter 6 unique in the PMBOK guide? What makes chapter 6 unique in the PMBOK guide? It's the only knowledge area. Jude says yuck. It's the only knowledge area that has not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, not six, but seven processes. Should I tell you the truth, folks? The 6th edition, time management doesn't hold that record anymore. It's going to be integration. We've added one process to integration. You don't even want to know. Don't even ask me which process it is. I don't want to mess with anyone's head right now. But let me show you an image here really quick so that we are all straightened out concerning that pesky topic of free slack and total slack and all that jazz. All right, so here we go. Let me try to bring up something to help us out. All right, so if you take a look here, we can see a task A and a task B, right? Task A has its early finish, task B has its early start. So what Sandy was chatting in talked about the early start of B. Early start of B minus the early finish of A would give you your free slack. But bear in mind, this is the 0 method. If you are using the 1 method, you're going to have to account for the 1 that exists at the beginning. Okay, I hope I'm not talking above everyone's head. I'm sure you guys get this. Lots of you guys know this stuff inside out. So free slack is this minus this. Free slack of A is early start of B minus early finish of A. Total slack of A would be the late finish minus the early finish, or the late start minus the early start. Total slack different from free slack. Total slack shows you how much time you can delay a task without delaying the end date of the project. But free slack shows you the amount of time you can delay a task without affecting its successor activity. So the successor activity in this case is B if you look at A. If you look at C, the successor also happens to be the final one. So the successor of C is E, so on and so forth. Okay? So my advice would be to go look that up. Let me give you one more here. So I showed this last week, give you some numbers in there. So take a look at B and C. Free slack of B in this case is going to be the 10 minus 10, which is 0. Total slack is also 10 minus 10. You see, let's go to another one here. Let me show you one that is a little bit different. Okay. So we've got E and G, an 8 and a 15. Free slack will be 15. Well, it's 14, I beg your pardon. 15 minus 14, that would be 1. So we can delay this by 1 day without affecting the successor. Also, we can delay this 15 minus 14 1 day without affecting the end of the project, which also happens to be the successor. All right? But that's a lot of talk, folks. I wasn't going to go into that, but I did want you guys to be aware that that is important to distinguish on the exam. Free slack, total slack, project slack, they're all different. So read that up a little bit more if you need to. All right. And we are at the end, my friends. So now is the time where I answer any questions or any concerns or any comments you might have. Questions, comments, concerns. Chat them in. So I'm not going to be back in the US by next week. I'm still going to be on the move. And I will probably be hosting the meeting out of the office again. So Dev said, as per your inputs in the above video, is my kind request to you that I would like to see your process explanation with data flow and ITTO. So Dev, I think you have what you're looking for in some bits and pieces. Yes, I see what you mean. That will probably be phase 2 of our study group. So what we're going to do, Dev, for the next few weeks, we're going to get done with all of these tools and techniques. And then when we get these off our plates, probably going to take about 3 meetings to do that. When we get done with all of this stuff, I will begin to introduce some of those elements. But a lot of what you're asking for, it's funny that you mentioned that, because some of the videos I'm going to be coming out with within the week, not these study groups, is going to focus a little bit on that, just a little bit. So why don't you hold on to that thought, Dev, and you're going to see some additional information come your way. So data gathering and representation techniques, I'm going to talk about that in our next session. But for now, we are done for today. If there are any comments or concerns, I want to address them. So thank you, Dev, for chatting that in. Any other comments or things I can answer for you? Is anybody taking the exam this coming week? Any exams coming up? Anybody got the PMP? No, you probably are going to rest for the new year. I can bet you've had your fill of the PMBOK guide for 1 year. You're probably going to give yourself the 1st of January a day off. Jude is pulling the trigger end of Jan. Good, very good, Jude. Just keep on doing those mock exams. Take the 50 question mock. Those of you on the phone, on the call, I am going to be typing in a link. Now, for someone like Jude that has done the worst of the mocks, he's probably going to find it easy. But when we get done with the meeting, check in about 15 minutes. You're going to see a link down below for a very simple 5 question test. Okay? And I'd like to know, how well you perform in that test. All right? I'll be checking to make sure you did it. Thank you, Judy. So you do yours mid-March? Good. Just before the change. Sandy, early February. Good. So we've still got some time together. Krishna, I see that. So end of January for you guys. Dev, I see that. And Jude, yes, the 50 question link. Don't worry, you're going to pass that one because you've done the worst. So it's going to be down below in the chat. It's going to be somewhere down below. Somewhere down below in the chat. Okay? So I'd like to thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate you. Those of you that find value out of this, I appreciate you. And those of you that don't find value, don't even come on. We don't want to see. If you don't get value from this, why do you keep coming on? You're wasting your time. I'm speaking specifically to the individual who keeps saying that these are a waste of time. Don't come on. Please don't come on. You're wasting your time and you probably do better off by studying alone. But thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate you and I appreciate you participating and contributing to the success of our study group. So I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Remember, look down below. You're going to see that chat, that link that will enable you take the quiz. Can you make this kind of chat 2 times per week? So I actually typically, thank you, Jude. I will say hi to my mom. And actually, I do this more than twice, Dev. So I do this on Monday and Tuesday when I am not on the move. I also do this on Friday evening, PM dinner jazz, when I am not on the move. And I also do this on Saturdays. All right. So thank you very much. Appreciate you guys. Have a wonderful and safe new year. Be safe. Don't do anything crazy.